devo dire che
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the show tonight. We got kind of a fun one planned tonight. Like the thumbnail in the video says, we're going to talk about some SHTF cooking options, some precautions that you should take the longer something goes on. And also, I found an article from Survivalpedia that talks about some of the best and worst places, states to live in a SHTF type situation. And I wanted to go over that a little bit because I love Survivalpedia, but this article was pretty basic and left just a whole lot of stuff out. So I wanted to, let everyone know how all of that, what I think about all of that, and also get your guys' ideas on all of that as well. Here in the chat, I am going to try to pay attention to the chat. So if you guys do have any comments or anything like that, I'll throw them in there and let me know. Local Prepper's here. What's going on, Local Prepper? Hey, stranger. But yeah, we're going to talk about some of that and also the precautions, because I think that is really important as well, because in something that goes on for a week, not a huge deal, right? You're going to have the neighborhood barbecues and things like that going on. But when something lasts a little bit longer, even maybe 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, a month, that's when things start to get a little bit hairy. And that's when you've got to think about your options as far as what to cook without alerting the neighborhood and everything. So should be a fun show tonight. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to let you guys know again about the group that I have set up. And I'm pretty excited about this group because I just cannot stand Facebook and a lot of these different social media companies that just tell you what you can and can't say. I'm just really over it. And then you've got all the ads and you've got all the trolls and all of those, just a lot of noise going on. So I created this group with that in mind, and it's starting to pick up steam right now. We're only, a week or so old, but it's just a really fun, interesting group, and it's just going to get better as time goes on. You can see a lot of the things. We can post polls in here, do just a lot of the same things you can do on these other social media websites, but without all the interference and everything. Over here on the side, this is all the categories that I have set up. So you've got the general prepping chat, you got prepping 101 for the beginners, and then all the different categories, all the different things that go into preparedness, firearms and self-defense, operational security, disasters and SHTF, and then current events and politics and conspiracies, which we'll see how this goes. You can already tell Jammer in here in the chat. I was talking about how this could make people's heads explode. You start talking about politics and everybody's at each other's throats. But so he decided to start it off there. But one last thing on the sidebar, for those of you that are members, I just noticed this today, but see how these are highlighted? A couple of these are highlighted. That means that there's new information in there that you haven't seen, or with me right here, I haven't seen. So if you just go into the general prepper chat, hey, there's the video I'm doing tonight. You can go in here and see what it is that's new in there that you haven't seen. Otherwise, what I just do, and for those of you that join and you're new to this, I just hit this feed button up here, and this tells me every single thing that's going on in here. I don't have to go to the individual groups. Now, if I were to post something, say I've got pictures of my chickens or something, which I have a few times now, I'd go into the farm animal section and post that. But as far as reading and seeing what's new, I usually just do this feed right up here. At any rate, just a very cool group, and it's going to get better and better. I set this up also to be a part of a sort of an information hub for members of the Bug Out location, and also for supporters when I do contests and giveaways and things like that. This is where everything is going to happen. This is going to be the best place you can get a hold of me. So with that, should be pretty cool. All right, haven't looked at the comments here in a sec. So Sharon, how you doing? Tabs, All American Prepper, what's going on? Brandon, Derek, Carrie, everyone in the chat, very cool. Welcome to the show. All right, so before I get into the different SHTF cooking options, I've told everybody a couple times that I am going to be doing a series of videos on SHTF cooking, actually doing the meals and seeing how they taking the stuff that I have or the stuff that we would have as preppers and putting them together and seeing how easy, how good they taste, and all of those different things. I think they'd be interesting videos. Some of the long-term food storage stuff, the Augustin Farm stuff, some of the, like I've got chickens here, so I've got eggs, all of those things that I'd be able to utilize in a longer-term SHTF situation, but without electricity, without refrigeration and things like that. So it sort of along the same lines of what we're talking about tonight. I've got a video that I'm doing. I'm calling it Prepper Breakfast that I just did. And I've got a shortened, condensed version of that video that I'm going to play here tonight. It's about 5 minutes long. But I'll get that full version up in the next couple of days or so. And by the way, on that, I'm just curious. I know the YouTube has got the YouTube Shorts, right? And I know this video is my shortened version, and it's 5 minutes, which maybe that's maybe that's a good amount of time for people's attention span these days. But I'm curious, do you all watch shorts? Because I just can't. I mean, I'll watch, like, if Local Prepper does one or any of the prepper channels, if they do a short, I'll watch it just to see what it is. But as far as getting in their little feed and watching all the ridiculousness and all that stuff, I just cannot stand it. It's not something I do. So I'm just curious if any of you actually watch the YouTube shorts, or if you get sucked in and get dug down or push down the rabbit hole for 5-10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you ask yourself, what the hell am I doing? I've done that before. At any rate, what I want to do is play this video of this prepper breakfast that I made, which is hash browns from Augustin Farms. I got some Yoder's canned bacon, some eggs from the chickens, and it turned out absolutely fantastic. I didn't show it in this video, but I ate the whole damn thing yesterday. So Beth said in the chat, I don't usually watch them. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. If it is a prepper channel, I'll check it out because I figure it's 60 seconds of my time. We'll see what they have to say. But I don't go into the whole YouTube thing. Derek said, I watch them. Yeah. And you know what? It's just, I know Brian and I have talked about this. Brian Duff, Mine for Survival. He'll get sucked down the rabbit hole and he'll watch them all the time. So Carrie said, occasionally watch the shorts. All American Prepper said, yes, I watch the shorts. All right. So yeah, I mean, to each their own, I suppose. I know that I just don't, I like watching videos for educational purposes, and I just don't see how much education you can put in a 60-second video unless it's a prepper tip or something like that. That's absolutely doable. But some of these some of them are sort of neat. They've got different tricks and ways to do things, but a lot of them are just dumb. All right, so what I want to do before I get too much into this, because I do want to get to everything tonight, so I'm going to play this video real quick of me with this prepper breakfast that I made, this short and condensed version of the video that I'm going to be putting out here in a couple days. Hey everyone, I'm going to be doing a series of videos about SHTF cooking or prepper recipes, and I'm going to put some of these things that we all have to use. Today I'm going to do a prepper breakfast, and basically this is everything that I've got that would be used, or that I would be able to use in some sort of SHTF or disaster situation. So what I've got here and what I'm going to do is basically make some bacon and eggs. I've got these hash browns right here from Augustin Farms that I'm going to use. This is already opened, so I figured I'd use them. We've got bread here that I made from the sun oven yesterday, and you can use, bread is going to be one of those things you're going to want to do maybe on a daily basis. You can use these little yeast packets that last about a year unrefrigerated. I've got some Yoder's canned bacon that I'm going to use today. Open this up. Now with this, once it's opened, you're going to need to use it probably that day. Maybe you could get into the next day. But it is bacon, so it's not going to be a big deal, making sure that gets eaten. I guaranteed it. One thing on this bacon is I know a lot of people look at the price and they go, oh no, I'm not doing that. But according to, if you were to get the pre-cooked bacon, about 4 of those is equal to what's in one of these cans. Now, it doesn't compare to the fresh bacon, not even the flavor doesn't compare. Fresh bacon is going to be a lot cheaper, but in an SHTF situation, you're not going to be able to refrigerate that. So while it is a little bit more expensive than regular bacon, it is the same price of that pre-cooked bacon that you would get, roughly about the same price. So to me, it's absolutely worth it. Watch me break these eggs here while I'm trying to explain this. But to me, it's absolutely worth it. So, and with that, we've still got eggs here, and luckily they're all still in one piece. These are from the chickens. Oh, that one cracked a little bit. These are from the chickens. So these are, you're able to keep these on the shelf. You know, in Europe, they use eggs. They don't even refrigerate them because they come straight from the farm or wherever. Here in the United States with eggs, they get washed and processed, and all the outer layer that protects them is gone. But farm fresh eggs, they're shelf stable. You can leave them on the shelf for a number of days. Now with chickens, if you have the ability to have chickens yourself, you're probably not going to have them sit on the counter for too long. So they're going to be good. So eggs, as long as you have chickens, you can use those eggs. They don't need refrigeration for the most part. Oil, I'm going to use oil instead of butter. They do have powdered butter, and we have some of it, but it's more for baking rather than, say, buttering bread. It doesn't get really smooth. Now, I suppose if you're really hungry and you wanted some buttered bread, if you're okay with like sandpaper butter or gritty butter, it's probably going to be, better than just bread, but, we're not going to do that today. I'm going to use oil for cooking the hash browns, and then I'm just going to use some jelly for the bread. I'm not even going to bother with the bread, the butter on the bread. Jelly is one of those things that we all refrigerate, but it doesn't, even when it's opened, it doesn't necessarily need to be refrigerated. Same thing with peanut butter. Now, you do want to use this. You don't want this sitting out for a month, just sitting in your cabinet for a month or so. I think that would be a little bit iffy. I personally, when I open these days, when everything's good and the refrigerator's running, I usually put these in the refrigerator, but you don't have to. So if you get the smaller jars like I do, and I know it costs a little bit more, but the smaller jars, if you do have to waste it, you're wasting this much rather than the big jar, throwing that whole jar away. So I like to get the smaller ones and put them in my food storage. Bigger ones that get used and rotated through, but some of these smaller ones just for those situations where if I do have to open it and you've got a few loaves of bread, the odds are this is going to be gone in one day anyway. Along with that too, I've got this milk that it's sort of in between. It's not as good as regular milk, but it's better than powdered milk. And these you can put them on the shelf, I believe, for a year. But if they're not cold, it's not the greatest. This is actually cold because I just pulled it out of my refrigerator. But in an SHTF situation, it's probably not going to be cold. So I'm not so sure about drinking this. I'll wait and see. I'll let this get a little bit warm and then we'll see how that tastes. But I'm not so sure about this. But in bowls of cereal, things like that, wouldn't be too bad. And again, if you're really hungry, it's going to taste a whole lot better than a bowl of cereal or a glass of water or something like that. So, all right, let's get a plate here and dish this up. First, a few slices of bacon, a little bit of the hash browns, both of the eggs, a little more of the hash browns, and then cut ourselves a piece of bread. I don't like the ends. And a little bit of jelly. And there you have pretty damn good breakfast right there. Build morale in a situation that not so good. Maybe a little extra salt and pepper on there. But tell you what, that actually looks pretty damn good. So the end of the world doesn't have to be the end of the world when it comes to eating in an SHTF situation. All right, so it actually was really freaking good, actually. A lot of people think that as preppers, I thought about that local prepper, fry that bread in a pan with some butter. I was trying not to use butter because I know you can leave butter out. And if I have time today, I've got an article I found as well about items that you don't need to refrigerate. I know you don't necessarily need to refrigerate butter, but I was thinking if it's something that goes on for a month or so, not sure. I mean, if you put butter in like a enclosed container in a dark place, not no light or anything like that, it's probably going to be okay. But we use a lot of olive oil for all of our stuff these days anyway. And I'm not so sure about what is actually in the butter. I can't believe it's not butter stuff, the margarine and all that. I need to look into that more, but at any rate, it was really, really good. And I want to do more videos like this of the different sort of products. Those hash browns from Augustin Farms were fantastic. You just boil them in water to rehydrate them a little bit and then fry them up. Absolutely tasted just like the real thing. That Yoder's canned bacon is fantastic, and the Sun Oven is just fantastic for everything. That's actually one of the items I'm going to talk about tonight. And then Tab said, I agree, fry it with the leftover oil from the eggs. Going to need those calories. Yeah. I didn't even really think about that. True. But yeah, any little bit, lick the pan clean, basically, in an SHTF type situation. Don't waste anything. That's one thing with this too. This meal right here took 4 cups of water. And it's something that we all sort of take for granted is the amount of water that we're going to need, but you're going to need it for cooking too. A lot of different meals, unless you're going to be like what a lot of people think that preppers are. We're just going to be opening up a can of SpaghettiOs or a can of peaches and downing that for 3 weeks straight. That's all we're going to eat. I don't know how that would taste after a few days of canned SpaghettiOs. Not bad these days, and the kids probably like them, but after a few days, I'm sure they probably wouldn't either at that point. But very good point, Tabs and local prepper. Yeah, butter. Got to figure out butter. Butter kind of goes up there with bacon, right? You want to make something taste good, butter, and a little bit of bacon with everything. Yeah. Charlie in the chat, what's going on? Yeah, good clean water. Yeah, absolutely. For everything. We sort of take that, a lot of us anyway, take it for granted, the amount that we're going to need and the little things here and there that we're going to need it for that sort of nickel and dime us throughout the day, throughout the week that we need it for. So at any rate, what I want to do is get into the different options that we have as preppers for cooking in some sort of longer term SHTF, and I suppose maybe middle of the road term, because if you're thinking about something that lasts over a year, a lot of these options may not be viable because you're going to need fuel storage and things like that. But if you're talking about something where it's a couple months or so, that is probably so a lot of these are probably feasible with that. So to start this off, I want to talk a little bit about the precautions, and I've got this article over at the SHTF shop talking about some operational security and cooking options. And I took this picture a long time ago. That's probably not a very good idea to heat that can up while you're holding it. Probably not going to be able to hold it for very long. But at any rate, I wanted to talk about the risks and the operational security and everything. And in this article, I talked about how when you're talking about an emergency that's only going to last a few days, a natural disaster or something like that, that causes a power outage, cooking smells and things like that aren't probably going to be a big issue. Like I said earlier, you're going to have people doing barbecues, emptying their refrigerators because it's going to go bad if they don't cook it. So nobody's really going to be hungry in the very beginning. But after, maybe even just a week, and I'd like to get your guys' thoughts, how long do you think it would take before the shelves at the grocery stores were empty? Because right now it's basically their inventory is about 3 days worth, but in an emergency or a disaster situation, that probably goes down to about three hours. Really depends on where you live and how quickly that store basically got ransacked. But don't depend on, and we all know this as preppers, I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, but don't depend on the grocery stores to have the things that you need. Make sure that's why we prepare. That's why we do the things we do. And also, loose lips sink ships is what I've got in here. And I do a terrible job. Just the fact that I am online and doing all this stuff, and any of us that are all-American prepper, local prepper, we do what we can to sort of minimize the information we put out there. But just the fact that we are online doing this stuff is sort of kind of defeats the purpose of OPSEC to some extent, at least. But I think, and like I say in this article, the OPSEC is a double-edged sword, because yes, you want to sort of be secretive about the things that you have and what you're doing. And even in this show, I don't talk about, there are some things I just don't talk about, and I'm never going to talk about. And then even as much as I blab my mouth all the time, there is a lot of stuff that I just keep to myself and Lisa, and some of the plans and all that. Yeah, local prepper said out of the closet. Yeah, yeah. But you do have to think about OPSEC, and this is that double-edged sword, because you have to think about the community factor as well. It's not just, you're not going to be able to go it alone. And we've talked about this in the group, in the Survivalist Prepper community a little bit, about helping people out. And you've got family members, you've got friends, you've got children that maybe have friends. And how many of those people are you going to either have to turn away or let in, or all of those things? And how many of them are actually going to be beneficial to you in that situation that you would want to sort of include in your plans? So it's just that something that we really need to think a lot about. But it is a tough situation. A lot of people like to boil it down to, I'm not letting anybody in. It's not happening. And if that's you, I suppose if you can do that, that's great. But I just don't think I could. I just don't think I could do that, especially when it comes to family members, the ones that I like anyway. Those family members, it would be tough to turn them away. Children, then you've got to deal with. Now, I tell my children these days, you're not bringing anybody. You got your immediate other, your kids and all that, and that's it. Don't be bringing the whole party to my house, because I'll turn you away with them. Now, would I really? I don't know, but that's what I say. So at any rate, let me get back to this article. I wanted to talk about a few things, and then we'll get into the different options. But some of the precautions that you need to take when you're in some sort of situation that has lasted a few weeks or so, and that is the smells. And unfortunately, most of these cooking options are going to, whether you're talking about smoke, whether you're talking about the smell, it's going to ring the dinner bell for the neighborhood. The neighborhood is going to know exactly what you're doing. So, like I said, the first week or so, maybe not that big of a deal, but at the longer that you go, it is, if you've got even neighbors that are a mile or two away, somebody lights their barbecue, and my neighbors are probably a half a mile away from me, maybe a little bit less than that, but they light their barbecue. They're not even cooking anything, and I can tell that their barbecue's on. So that is something we definitely need to think about. Also, fireplaces and things like that, those smoke signals that you're putting out, that needs to be considered. So there might be a time in this situation where you do, go to those SpaghettiOs like I was talking about. You go to the SpaghettiOs, the things that aren't going to put off smells. Now, granted, in this type of situation, most of us probably aren't going to have a whole lot of meat, unless it's the canned meat that's already pre-cooked, which is, not going to give off a lot of smell. But anything you put on that grill itself is if the neighbors are hungry, they're going to find you. So along with that, there's a couple things I have in here. I'm trying to read the chats and do all this at the same time. Yeah, angry all-American prepper. You hit the nail right on the head with the ones that I like. So a few of the options, like I was just talking about right here, canned food is something that you just pop it open. As long as you've got a can opener, make sure you have a can opener. and you don't have to worry about cooking that. Maybe heat it up a little bit somehow, but you don't have to worry about maybe possibly lighting that grill or lighting a fire in the fire pit or anything like that. Long-term food, you do need a way to boil water, but that is not going to give off those aromas. And if you do it in some smaller sort of propane grill or even like a little camp stove, something like that, you just heat up that water, boil that water, put that in there. It's not going to give off the smell that cooking a nice juicy steak would, anything like that. And then uncooked foods. And I'm not, talking about raw meat or anything, but in this article, I talked about fruits and vegetables and things that you grow, things that out of cans, things that don't need any preparation whatsoever. You just basically open the can or open it up and throw it in your mouth. Now, some of these vegetables may be a little bit tough because depending on the time frame you're looking at, a lot of them don't need refrigeration. Some of them do. Tomatoes, carrots, potatoes, things like that don't need refrigeration. But after a while, they are going to go bad. So with that, I wanted to, now I've talked about some of the precautions, I want to talk about some of the options that we might have. And these are, I mean, they are what they are. They all have their drawbacks, basically. Some of them are going to be better than others. Some of them are going to be super expensive. But we need to sort of think about these different things and think about the different scenarios where one option might be better than the other option, just like I was talking about. Maybe the third week into something, the second week into something, you're not lighting up that propane grill. You're not lighting a fire in the backyard or in your fireplace, which could be tough in the wintertime. Again, so many different variables. But you've got to think about all of these. So what I'll do is I'll just go through these because I still want to get to the different places, the different states to be at the end. But the first one I've got here, we'll just go through these generators, and this is propane or gas powered generators. And these, like in that initial stage, that 1 week type stage, you might be okay with using a generator. Although you are a huge target because of the noise that these put out. If people around and this goes for more than just cooking as well. This goes for just having the ability to turn the lights on, to get the heat on, the power, whatever you're using that generator for. If you are the only one in the neighborhood that's got the generator, and when everything is dead silent because there's no electricity, there's nothing running, very few cars around, that generator is going to be, it's going to ring for miles and miles and miles. Same thing is, if you use it for light, if you turn those lights on and nobody else has got light, if you've ever been camping and you can see on, a mountain that is probably 15, 20 miles away from you, and you can see somebody's got a campfire lit and it's really tiny. Same thing with, the lights in your house. People are going to know that you've got something going on. You guys, I think you talk about solar in there. Yeah, I think solar is one of the best options. And I'll just move on from this one because this is one that would be a really good option. But this Goal Zero right here, let me see here. This Goal Zero right here on this, the picture that I've got right here, is about $3,000. So you could power up a refrigerator, even a small, just a little, one of those little tiny refrigerators are going to take probably 50 to 100 amp hours a day. They're going to take up a lot of juice. They're easy to run, but something like this would power one of those. This will power a full size refrigerator, but you're talking about $3,000 here. Now, they do have Generac generators, but again, those are loud. So this would be a really good option, but the price is a little bit inhibitive. Now, I know that Goal Zero, you're paying a little bit extra for the name with them. There's probably some other options. I really haven't looked into that much, but that solar generator is going to be one of those things that or solar in general, maybe not that one, but solar in general, because it is going to be silent. And if you are just boiling water or doing something like that, that is something you don't want to crank on the generator just to boil, 2 quarts of water or something to cook some legacy food, because you're basically, like I said, I'll probably say it a few times tonight, you're ringing the dinner bell. But this one, if you have the means to do something like this, there's also DIY options as well that you can do with setting up a battery bank or something like that, which you can do for a lot cheaper than this. But again, you're talking about how much energy can you put into it? How much sunshine are you getting? How many solar panels do you have? So many different calculations that go into this. And how long is the situation going on? The positive with solar is it's renewable. Once your fuel runs out, your fuel runs out. And if there's no way to get more fuel, your barbecue grill, you're going to be putting sticks and tinder in there to get a fire started and cooking with it that way. So let me see in the chat. Nothing that I can see at this point anyway. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this one's a little bit tricky. And this one is gas stoves. And there's a huge caveat to this. If you are one of the lucky people that have one of the older gas stoves because the government, they love to put all these safety features and everything, right? They basically ruin gas cans. But these new gas powered stove have what's called an interlock feature. And this interlock feature means that it's not going to work without electricity. If you do have one of the old school gas stoves, that may work. I'm not real sure about that. I know my grandmother had the gas stove, but back then I didn't care about these things like I care about them now. I didn't pay too much attention. But if anybody knows or anybody does have an older gas stove, would they work? Because I don't know how that gas gets generated, and pushed through the lines to where you are. I don't know if it would be something where you have that for maybe you'll have it for a week or so, but once everything runs out, then you don't anymore. I don't know exactly how that works, but for some people, this could be an option. For most people, this is not going to be an option. It would be nice though, because it gives you the ability to cook indoors, although it's still putting off a flame and all of that. But All American Prepper in the chat says you don't use refrigeration at all. All American Prepper, that is damn hard, but probably damn smart. Get used to all of this stuff before it becomes something that you have to get used to, right? So yeah, that's absolutely a lot of people just wouldn't go that route. I don't know. I like to cook a lot of different things, and I don't know if I actually could. But if you do, you talked about in there in the chat here, you said, I live as primitive as possible. The Native Americans, that way they did was just fine. Yeah, that very true. Very true. So at any rate, we'll move on from gas stoves here and we'll go to the next one, which is the good old fashioned wood fires. And you've got a lot of different options for this. You've got the fire pit. I've got a fire pit, a real cheap fire pit in the backyard. I'm actually going to do something a little bit better. You could dig a hole in your backyard, line it with rocks, do the old campfire thing. You've got the camp stoves that you could use if you're just, boiling a pot of water or something small, maybe cooking some eggs, something like that. You could use one of those. If it is in the wintertime and other people are using their fireplaces, maybe you can get away with that. But again, you are going to be giving off those smoke signals. I'm sure you've all walked out of the house and you can tell when somebody's got their fireplace on and it smells like it might be right next door, but it could be a couple miles away. One thing, with these as well is, like I said, it's if you are in a situation where a lot of other people are using it, maybe it's cold or anything like that, but that might be okay. But you've just got to, pay close attention to that. But a fire, that is one of those things where it's not, renewable like solar is. But in my area, there are a lot of trees. Now, who knows how many trees there's going to be, say something lasts 2 months. I mean, I have no idea. Maybe it looks like a desert out here after that. But that is sort of a fuel source that, could be sort of renewable. Granted, the trees you're going to cut down are probably fresh. They're not seasoned or anything like that. So, But it is, one of those options that is something that you really need to think about, and something that it may be the only option that you have as far as getting it, whether it's you're talking about heating your home or whether you're talking about cooking some of the food you actually have. So, what is in the chat here? We've got mount the washer drum on an old push mower. I move it around if needed. I'm jumping into the chat here. I'm not quite sure what you guys are talking about. But at any rate, we'll move on to the next one. And it's sort of the same type of thing, but it's indoors. And this is a wood stove. We just recently put a wood stove insert into our fireplace. But fireplaces and wood stoves, again, you're going to be putting off that smell. But if it is cold out, this is something that you can do indoors. Ours isn't quite like this one that I have pictured here, where it's got the full top where you can actually, get water to boil. Ours has a little platform on the top that will heat up water, but it won't heat it to the point of boiling. So it would be something that I would have to put in maybe cast iron, maybe a Dutch oven, something like that. I would have to put it into the oven itself to get the water to boil, something like that. But the stoves, the fireplaces, things like that, if you are in a location where you do have those are pretty good as well. Tab said here in the chat, even with an insert, you can put a Dutch oven inside. Yeah, that's something that Lisa and I made sure that it was large enough that we could actually utilize the inside. We were hoping that the little mantle on the front was going to be hot enough that would get hot enough to boil water, but it just doesn't work that way. So the next one I've got here, and this one is by far my favorite, I think, and this is the All-American Sun Oven, or solar ovens in general. The All-American Sun Oven just works so much better than I've used a couple different ones, and it just works so fantastic. And the cool thing about this All-American Sun Oven, well, there's a few different cool things about this, but one, it doesn't burn anything. Like the bread I made the other day, I actually took off for a little bit and came back and probably could have taken it out an hour before I did. And that video you saw in the beginning was this bread right here. And it was absolutely perfect. So it doesn't burn anything. It doesn't have that convection type heat, so it doesn't burn anything. The other thing that's cool about these solar ovens, the Sun Oven specifically, I'm not sure about the other ones, but this doesn't give off any smell at all. I can stick this in, and I have stuck this in the backyard with my dogs and set it out there I made some pot roast in there. Set it out there all day long, probably 4 or 5 hours out there. Dogs didn't even mess with it. One, it gets a little bit hot, so they don't want to touch it. If they go up and smell that glass, they're going to burn their nose. Not so bad that they injure themselves, but they're just not going to mess with it. And two, it doesn't give them really any reason to, because it doesn't give off any smell. So if you can't go the solar route, something like this might be an option, because your neighbors won't even know unless you've got it out in the front yard or they can see that you've got a solar oven. A lot of people would probably look at this solar oven and go, what the hell is that? I'm sure that people, when I put it out in my driveway and I start cooking, the neighbors that can see to my driveway, 2 of them, probably sitting there thinking, what the hell is that dude doing out there? Is that some sort of satellite dish or something? But a lot of people aren't going to know what it is, and it's not going to raise those red flags or anything like that. Hey, Kevin Hart in the chat. I don't think that's the Kevin Hart I'm thinking of, but foraging plants is a fantasy. When people are hungry, they'll shoot you for your stuff. Best cache a year's supply of food and have seeds for later. Yeah, I get both sides of that. I think foraging is an important skill to have. But at the same time, if you're going to depend on that for your sustainability, you're kind of rolling the dice there, I think, a little bit. What is this? The comment here on the solar ovens from Tabs right here. Put the solar oven on the roof. Makes them less obvious. Yeah, it really would look like a satellite at that point, right? It'd be tough to climb the ladder with a lot of food and things like that. But yeah, it absolutely would. But solar ovens are fantastic. This is one of those things where if you are in the midst of something really big and you don't want to be lighting fires, you don't want to be starting the generator, this is something that really would be a viable option. Now, they are a few $100. I bought mine about 7 years ago, and I just say it's well worth it. It is one of my most important pieces of prepping survival gear that I have. I just absolutely love the sun oven, and it's one of those that doesn't just sit around all the time. It's one of those that I use probably 3-4 times throughout the year just to cook, because I love the way the food tastes in it. You can also boil water in this, pasteurized water, just so many different things you can do with the All-American Sun Oven. All right, let's move on here. The next one I've got is a propane grill, and this is the one that probably most of us have. And as long as you've got the one with the burner on the side, you're going to be able to boil water. You're going to be able to do a lot of things with this. But like I said before, this is going to be one of those that, you're giving out signals that you've got food if you're lighting this up. So if other people in the neighborhood are doing it, maybe you're okay. If they're not, I don't know that I would be lighting the propane grill, but this is one of those options. I think everybody should have a couple small tanks of propane that goes with these. A couple, we have, like I said, I think I said last week or the week before, we have 3 of them here that we just continue to rotate through, because even it may be something sort of like the pandemic that is long rolling, but it may not be something that is completely everybody's out of food and they're fighting over things. It could be something, a job loss where you just can't afford to do the other thing. So propane is always something I think is an important part of your preps, along with fuel storage as well, and sort of the same reasons. You're not going to be cooking with gasoline. Hopefully you're not. It's not going to taste very good if you are anyway. But it is important to have that, especially thinking about if you need to bug out or you need to get from point A to point B. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of water storage and you need to get to a water source and fill that up. Fuel is important as well. So propane grills are good to have, but there are a lot of situations where it's probably a good idea or probably not a good idea to use those. Now, sort of along the same lines of those are the little Coleman stoves. And these will put off less of a smell, but they're still, people are still going to know you're cooking. The flames are smaller. As long as you cook things like in this picture right here, as long as you're cooking things in the pan, you're not getting the juices and the flavors and all that dropping into the flames and burning off and, sending the aromas all over the neighborhood. That might be better, or that might be okay. These also have the smaller cans. What's good about these types of grills are they are portable. So if you do need to get the heck out of Dodge, you're bugging out for a little while, things have gotten so bad you need to take off. These are, good luck getting the propane grill in the back of your truck or the back of your car. But this Coleman stove will fold up nice and neat. And this is sort of the same one that I have, a little bit older model. This might even be a newer one, but these are good to have as well. The last one I have here on this list is back behind me. I've got this Instafire stove, this Vesta Instafire up here, and it's canned heat basically. And these are, if you're thinking about a situation where you'd need to cook indoors, these are a viable option. You do need a little bit of ventilation because they do, you see caterers use these all the time, but they're usually in big banquet halls and things like that. So if you're using this in a small room, whether it's to heat up that room, bring it up a few degrees, or, cook, boil water, do whatever you need to do, you are going to need ventilation. But I did a video on this, and it absolutely will boil water. I'd fried an egg on it. It brings up the temperature of a room, and all I had was the door cracked. I didn't have a window up or anything. Brought it up, I believe, like 5-6 degrees. If I would have left it on more, it probably would have brought it up a little bit more. But sterno, canned heat, all of these different things are good to have. I've got a couple cases right here of the high heat sterno. The sterno itself, sterno brand canned heat, I did a comparison of the different types. and I've got this 7-pin, the extra hot canned heat that Vesta sells, and then the Sterno brand. And the Sterno, it'll get hot enough to boil water, but it takes a whole lot longer. And then you've got the 7-pin, which was the cheapest stuff I could find, and it actually burns a little bit hotter than the Sterno. And then that, I was wondering about the Vesta canned heat, the extra hot, if it really was. And it actually really is extra hot. So it is worth that few extra bucks if you want to make sure that you're going to be able to cook something, make sure you're going to be able to boil water and do it quicker and not have to expend as much fuel in those canisters than you would normally with, say, the Sterno or something like that. Now, this is not the most cost-effective option out there either. So just keep that in mind. But it is something, if you've got a few of these different options, you can pick and choose what the situation dictates that you do. As far as if you need to do something without the heat going on, without the smoke and the smells and things like that. Think about some sort of solar option. You've also got like the hot plates. I have this on here as well, but I wasn't sure I wanted to bring this up because hot plates are just not that practical. If you had one of those expensive ass Yetis that 3,000 watts, you can run a hot plate. I believe one of these hot plates takes about 12,000 watts or 1,200 watts to run. So they are not the most practical as far as energy usage. But they, you can use them indoors and all of those things. So if you've got the ability, you've got the alternative energy plan to use that stuff, more power to you. But it's just, I think it's important to have all of these, or think about all of these different options, and think about what you would do in different situations, in different scenarios, right after a disaster. If things are kicking off around you, things are getting pretty bad, and you're not going to want to light that fire, what other options do you have? And the fallback is always that canned food, right? The SpaghettiOs, the canned peaches, the canned green beans, things like that. Those will do. Those will sustain you, but they will get pretty old after a while. So. All right. So what I wanted to do before we get out of here today, I want to talk about this article from real quick. Before we do that, I wanted to just go through a couple of these surprising foods you don't need to refrigerate. And a lot of these, I think as preppers, we're probably going to know. Because that's just kind of what we do, right? We think about all these. But when I was reading this, there was a couple on here that were sort of surprising. So I want to go through some of them. Ketchup, I think we probably already knew, but this is because ketchup, I think it's because of its acidity. Yeah. This is acceptable because of ketchup's acidity. Acidity is measured in pH, and it's one of the six factors that contributes to growth of bacteria in food. So their conclusion here basically is that keep ketchup in the cupboard, not the fridge. We do this all the time. I mean, we keep it in the fridge just because I think it's habit, but it doesn't need to. If it sits out on the counter overnight, it's not like I'm throwing the stuff away. Maple syrup, we don't leave in the fridge. And this is something that my grandma and my mother, nobody in my family has ever done that. So it's just something that sits in the shelf. The syrup that we've had in the shelf now, probably over a year old. So it is definitely one of those. And this is because of the moisture content of the syrup itself. It says here, to support growth of bacteria, foods need to have a moisture content that corresponds with an AW value of 90% or higher. For example, the AW of 95 syrup, on the other hand, sorry, I'm butchering this. Syrup, on the other hand, has an AW of around 80. So it's below that 90%. So this can be stored on the shelf. Peanut butter. I've heard some things, and I think we had this conversation a while back. I've heard some things about people saying, don't store peanut butter. Don't store peanut butter long-term because it'll go rancid. I've heard of people that have had peanut butter for over a year. We've had peanut butter for over a year sitting in our pantry, and as long as it's sealed tight, as long as it's in a, in the pantry cupboard in a dark place, it's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm still here. And all of this stuff, I'm not telling you what to do, what not to do. This is to each their own. Go do your research and you decide. If you're not going to chance the peanut butter over a year old, then don't chance it. I know there are a lot of people that do. And honestly, peanut butter's so good, you probably shouldn't last that long anyway. Jams and jellies. And this is one that we always keep jam and jelly in the refrigerator. And this is one I really didn't know about, but you can leave it out on the counter because of that, the water activity of around 80. So it's below that 90%. So jams and jellies can stay on the counter as well. Good for SHTF type situations. Barbecue sauce, I think that's sort of along the same lines. I think it's self-explanatory along the same lines as ketchup and stuff. But butter will go rancid. And this is one of those, it's really iffy to me. And I'd like to get your guys' thoughts in the chat, but it's one of those things really iffy to me. If you just leave it out on the counter open, sort of like this picture right here in the light, it's probably going to get rancid. It's going to get soft and all of that stuff. So I just don't know. But it says here, like peanut butter, butter can go rancid if exposed to oxygen, light, and heat. So as long as you keep it in an opaque dish, and use it in a reasonable, that's the key words right there, in a reasonable amount of time, it's perfectly okay to store on the counter. So in some sort of disaster situation, maybe after a couple weeks, you're okay, but something goes on a month or so, I don't know. Maybe smell it, taste it, and see if it's any good. Give it to one of the kids. Potatoes, self-explanatory, I think. Honey, self-explanatory, I think. Most oils, we never keep oil in the refrigerator, but they do go bad after a while, even if it's just that they lose their flavor and taste and all that. Breads and baked goods are one of those things that, this is sort of self-explanatory, so don't need to refrigerate it. It will help the shelf life. You can freeze it if you want to, make it last a lot longer. Tomatoes, we always put tomatoes in the refrigerator, and I honestly don't know why, because you go to the store and you buy them on the shelf, right? And then chocolate is one of those things too. You store chocolate too long, I don't care how you store it. It's gonna start tasting bad, but it's not necessarily gonna go rancid if you store it correctly. It's just gonna start tasting bad. Onions, same thing. Garlic, same thing. So a lot of these that, like I said, I think most of us know about a lot of these, but there are some on there that I thought was just pretty interesting. Tab in the chat said here, you can pressure can butter. Yeah. That would be something too. And maybe in those little tiny jars, like the preserved jars or whatever those are. So that way, when it does sit out, it's not going to sit out forever. It's not going to be like a big old jar that you're going to have to use all that butter. Although you probably would be able to, depending on the size of your family and all that. So at any rate, I want to get to this article from Survivalpedia. And in this article, they talk about different places that are going to be dangerous and different places that are going to be different states, more specifically, that are going to be the best states to live in. Now, we've talked about in a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago, we talked about the best places to be or the worst places to be. And some of these are self-explanatory, but they didn't go into a lot of detail in this article. So I want to talk about it a little bit here. They didn't really say the criteria, what makes these different places the best or the worst place. They didn't go into why the different... There's a lot that goes into what makes some place good and what makes some state bad as far as an SHTF situation. So a couple things first. They talk about shit hits the fan scenarios defined. How likely are they? And he talks about a few of them here, a few of the big ones anyway. Job losses could happen at any time. Regional disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes, and wildfires. An economic collapse, I think this can even be defined a little bit more. You're talking about different levels of a collapse or a crisis. That is probably 4 or 5 different ones right there. Then you've got cyber attacks, which a lot of us don't talk about a whole lot, but that is one that could creep its ugly head up and do a lot of damage. A lot of us don't spend a lot of time preparing for that stuff, although it is sort of the same situation as a grid down event, right? Cyber attack is going to take certain infrastructure and things out at the same way that a grid down event would do. So, and then a pandemic, we've had one already that wasn't as bad as a lot of people thought it was going to get. But there absolutely could be a pandemic that is that bad. So we need to think about that. And then war, and then critical power failure. War is one of those things, I think, just like the economic collapse, could mean a lot of different things. It could mean here on the U.S. soil. It could mean like what's going on now with our politicians trying to start World War III. Could be, just a number of different things. So, but war is one of those ever increasing type threats that something we used to sort of think about, but it wasn't really a big deal. Like it was the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that, where nowadays it is sort of becoming that bigger type deal. So at any rate, one more thing here that they talk about is factors to consider in an SHTF scenario. And this is more, they go into a little bit of detail, more so about bugging out rather than, sheltering in. But you need to think about climate, and I'm not going to go over this in much detail. I believe I have. If I don't have the link in the show notes in the description below, I will put it in there. But the availability of resources, so what is available on your route to and from and in the between where you're going and, point A and point B. I may do a live stream on bugging out in general because this doesn't go through a whole lot of detail. Then you got your natural threats, depending on if it was a natural disaster, the route you're traveling, what different areas you're traveling through, and then the human-made threats, which I think are a big issue, because if you are traveling from point A to point B, there are probably going to be a lot of choke points along the way to that location that you really need to think about and have a good plan for. So what I want to do is, I don't need this on full screen here, so I'll talk about a few of the ones that they go through. And again, there's not a lot of detail to this, and I do like Survivalpedia, but it seems like this could have been a little bit more detailed. The criteria, now we know what makes metro areas more dangerous, but the average person may not. As preppers, we know absolutely what makes it more dangerous, because the more population there is, the more opportunity for everything to completely go haywire, the more opportunity for crime and all that. So the major population areas are going to be those places that are, the highest risk, I suppose. Now, I think I think one of you talk about Florida, New York, and California, and Texas here, which I'll get into Texas here in a second, but the one place that absolutely should have been on this list, I think, is probably going to be the most dangerous place in the United States. It's probably Washington, D.C., because of it's already a sort of a dangerous place to begin with. But then you've got all the political elites, the powerful, and all that, if they're actually there when things go down. That could be one of the worst places to be in the United States. So I think that should have probably been on this list. But Florida, they put on this list. And again, they didn't really go through a lot of criteria for this. But I do see the point with Florida, because it does have the hurricanes. It does, there's not a lot of great terrain. There's not a lot of good, soil for growing and things like that down in Florida. But it does see its fair share, like they say here, it does see its fair share of natural disasters and things like that. But, I can see the point with Florida, but I just don't. I'd like a little bit more detail than 2 sentences here. New York, parts of New York are quite rural and gorgeous. The problem is the severe weather extremes in such areas. Sections of the state are tucked away between the Great Lakes and the Atlantic seaboard, which are the snowiest in the regions. And see, he goes through a lot of the natural disaster and the geological restrictions here in places like this, but there's a whole lot of other reasons why I would not want to be in New York when anything sort of hit the fan or something like that. So And California, almost exactly the same thing, just two sides of the country, basically. The East Coast and the left coast. I don't want to be anywhere up north in that area, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere on the West Coast at all. Now, some of the places inside interior California, as long as the politicians haven't gotten their hands in there yet, that might be a little bit better, especially in the mountainous areas. But California is, I wouldn't want to be there. All-American Prepper here in the chat was talking about Florida. He said, in Florida, a lot of people will die off from the first couple of months just to have you just have to outcast them and be ready to fight them. Yeah, that is one of those things that in a true SHTF situation like this, and if you are, especially if you're talking about New York, California, those urban centers, you better, that better be part of your preparedness plans. Bugging out before any of that becomes an issue, and then figuring out how to deal with those threats if and when it does become an issue. So, all right. So Texas here, I just don't know about Texas. And in this real quick, he says, they talk about Texas here, and he says, you might want a firearm for self-defense. But every person in Texas is not responsible and humane. Texas has more mass shootings than any other state, and the U.S. leads the world in these events. There are plenty of open spaces, but is it worth the risk? Furthermore, 2018, Texas had the most motor vehicle fatalities, followed closely by California, and your escape route could be hopelessly deadlocked. Now, the one thing that they don't talk about in here, and I believe in this, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, one thing they don't even mention here is the border and all the illegal aliens and all of those things that are, and I'm not saying that they're all dangerous or anything, but that could affect the SHTF type situation. Now, I would honestly say I'm more worried about the Americans that are entitled and feel like they're entitled to everything, rather than these people that have hoofed it hundreds or maybe sometimes thousands of miles and are used to that SHTF type situation already. I'd be more worried about mom and pop in Austin, Texas, or somewhere like that. The people that just depend on the government for everything and wouldn't have a clue how to handle a situation if it did come down to that. I'd be more worried about them than the illegal immigrants. But at the same time, you do have that you should consider. So the least dangerous places, and this, I think it deserves more than just like they talk about here in the climate and the population and things like that. You've got to look at laws as well. If you are looking to move to an area, Lisa and I have thought about getting out of Colorado because it's going down this path of it's just not good. It's basically turning into California. So we've looked and thought about different states. Montana, they do have on this list right here, which I think is one of the better states other than, the weather situation, but one of the better states to go as far as, you're thinking about laws, you're thinking about how far away you can be from other people, the cost of living, all of those things that will play a factor in the least dangerous place to be. It's not just about natural disasters. And I think this article goes a little bit too much into that. They factor in too much of that and not all of the other things that go into an SHTF type situation. What did Kevin have to say here in the chat? 99% of the population will be dead a year after SHTFs, 90% in 6 months. You don't have to hide out for that long. Viet Cong lived in tunnels for 30 years. Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about that. Very good point, Kevin. That's the one thing about all of this. You've got to figure out, you want to be one of those 10%, right? And then after it's all said and done, you want to be one of those 1%. And I think maybe it's a couple percent. There's no real number, but you want to be one of those people that can start that rebuilding, whatever that looks like type situation, right? And that goes to, if you want to be one of those people that lasted longer than a year, even though you watch some shows like Doomsday Preppers and they say I'm preparing for this and that, and I don't know that they've ever given anyone a year to survive. But if you are living that long, you need to have, thank you, Kevin, that was a good comment. You need to have the ability to live sustainably. You need to have a food source that is, you're going to be able to replenish. So you've got the gardening skills. You're going to have a community and a group of people that are all working together. It's not going to be all super easy or anything like that. Getting through the first couple of months is going to be a pain in the butt, but it's doable. Getting through the first year, that's going to take a whole lot of work, a whole lot of planning, and a whole lot of planning beforehand. Before here. Top Gun Precision. What's up, Dale? Victor Bravo from the, oh yeah, Victor. Hey, yeah, in the group over there. You changed your name and I'm going to lose track of everybody. I get to know who the people are and then they change their name. Check out Top Gun Precision's channel too. He's got a YouTube channel over here. I believe just started up a little while ago. All American Prepper, check out his channel too. He's got, if you're into some self-defense stuff and things like that, and maybe have All American Prepper on the show here in the future. If you're into stuff like that, go check out his channel too. He's got quite a bit of stuff over there. But at any rate, like I said, in this, they go through New Mexico, Arizona, Montana, I believe would be a good place. Utah, I think there's some pretty cool places in Utah. And it is sort of tucked away. I used to think Colorado was one of those places, but I just don't know that certain parts of Colorado, not necessarily where I live, not by Colorado Springs, not by Denver. And I'm not real close to either one of those, but I'm just close enough to make things a little bit uncomfortable. Just close enough to Cheyenne Mountain and all of that I am in the danger zone. But there are some places in Colorado, especially once you get up into the mountains, that could be pretty good as long as you have the ability to sustain yourself in situations like that. So, All American Prepper, I'd love to be on the show, man. Yeah. Hit me up or I will hit you up. My email is dale@survivalistprepper.net. And get a hold of me that way or on Twitter or wherever. Leave a comment here and I'll on this video. Anyway, we'll figure out how to get in touch with each other. But Utah, I think would be pretty cool. Plus the Mormons, man. Mormons, they are the original preppers, right? They got the food storage and all that stuff down. So, now I'm not so sure about the whole self-defense aspect of the Mormon life, but my brother is Mormon and is a very good hunter. And I'll just leave it at that, but because he might be listening. Utah would be a decent place to be, but there's so many factors is my whole point with this. There's so many factors that go into what's going to make a good state, what's going to make a bad state. And just the fact of if you've got a really good setup, maybe you've got a bug out location. I know there's a lot of people in North Carolina. I know a few of them that have their prepper groups and things really set up. That may be the best place to be in an SHTF situation. But if you are looking at moving, like I said, Lisa and I are, so it's on the table anyway. I'm not sure that we'll be moving, but or anytime soon. We will be eventually because I just don't see things going in the right direction here. As soon as they ban, quote unquote, ban assault weapons, I'm going in hardcore into the researching different states, which could happen, I mean, in the next few years or so. But at any rate, there's a lot more that goes into all of that rather than just the geographical stuff. And I mean, so many different factors you need to think about if you are going to uproot yourself and move and do things like that rather than just the best weather and maybe that is something that is a major factor to you, not having to deal with winter. I know it is a factor for Lisa. She cannot stand the winter. It's just a lot of things that we need to think about personally and think about what SHTF type situations that we do feel are the most likely or that are the more concerning to us when it comes to finding different places to live. So, all right. So I'll go through a couple comments here. But if they aren't Mormon, they close ranks very quickly when things get bad. I think so. I'm jumping into a conversation here again. if things collapse, don't be around major nuke war targets. Yeah, like I am. Major chemical storage production plants. That's one thing. Again, another good comment, Kevin. That's one thing you really got to pay attention to too, is what sort of, you've got military bases, you've got all sorts of things, not just nuke targets, but all sorts of different things. Out on the East Coast, you've got all sorts of what are the nuclear power plants and things like that you need to factor into. How safe is my area really? A lot of research that needs to go into what different things, if something did kick off, what is likely, or maybe it is a cyber attack, something like that causes from a nuclear, a nuclear plant meltdown. I think there's probably safety precautions for that. I don't know, Brandon, if he's in here, he'd know more about that than me, but you got the chemical plants and things like that. You really have to be, cautious and pay attention to those type situations as well. Oh, wrong comment right here. Charlie said in the chat, winter would be tough without the right resources. Yeah, it would. Almost impossible. And the same sort of goes for a really harsh climate like Arizona. If you don't have the right resources there, it's that you're just dying a different way, basically. The one good thing that I do like about winter is and I can't stand the cold, but it's the cold because you can refrigerate things. So if a disaster kicks off and it is, January or February or March, something like that, that refrigeration you're not going to have to worry about too much for a little bit, and you've got time to get your ducks in a row. But at the same time, you've got to heat your home and do things like that. So the winter, you've got the snowfall. So if you do run short on water, you've got some snow, although it takes a whole lot of snow to get a little bit of water, but you do have that. Of course, if you live in Washington, water catchment and things like that probably aren't a big issue either. So again, each state has its pros and cons, but there's a lot more that goes into it than you can't really say what's the best and what's the worst. Now, you could, if they or somebody were to put some criteria on it and figure out exactly why they're giving it the rank that they did. I think I would sort of go with that, but something like this, it's just kind of, you're just throwing a few states out there, it seems like to me. So, Brandon, in the chat, as a poor college student, I lived in the mountains, fridge died in the winter, saved my butt. Yeah. And I've had to do that, and maybe not to that extreme, but I've had to do that on occasion where the power has been out, and it's like, well, just put the crap outside. It's going to be fine. Now, you do have to be careful because you don't want to put the water out there. If you got a water in a gallon jug or something like that, and it freezes, it's going to crack open, and the second it thaws, it's going to be it's going to be all over the place. You're not going to have any water anymore. So, at any rate, that's it for me today. Like I said, if you guys get a chance, go over and check out that community. It's members.survivalistprepper.net. It's starting to get a little bit more active over there. It's not just me, posting things anymore. We're getting a little bit more active. Like I said, it's pretty young at this point, but eventually it's going to be a fantastic little group. It's also where I'm making the Bug Out Location 3.0, starting from scratch, all the prepping courses, basically making it into a preparedness community. And this group right here is all part of that. And this is where I'm going to be posting updates about the Bug Out Location. But go check that out if you can. I will be doing some videos on SHTF recipes. I'm actually going to try them out and cook them. Try some of these long-term food storage products and things like that, and see how actually good they are or how bad they suck. I haven't tried a lot of Wise Foods or any of the other ones, but I might buy some just to do a taste test. I know I like Legacy Foods. It's still long-term food storage, so it's not the greatest stuff in the world, but it is a lot better than some of the other ones. Ogden Farms is great too. They have all the ingredients. But I'll also be doing like spaghetti. I've got some canned beef that I want to, or not canned beef, beef dices that I want to try out from Legacy Foods. You can get the canned hamburger from the store, canned tuna, things like that. So I'm going to try a whole bunch of different things that we could do in an SHTF situation. So it should be a lot of fun to make those videos and eat them and figure out if they suck or if it's pretty good. So But everyone in the chat, a lot of you here tonight. Anybody I missed? Sandy, I think you just joined. Kevin, thanks for the great comments. Brandon, both Brandons. You guys joined the bug out location, the group at the same time, or the Facebook group as well. So I was getting confused on who was who, but Tabs, thank you for the comments as well. Everyone in the chat, appreciate it tonight. All American Prepper, get a hold of me. I'll try to get a hold of you. Local Prepper's probably already out of here. He's like me, doesn't have the patience to stick around for a whole live stream. Glad you guys do though. Batshite Crazy, how's it going? You need to, I'm not sure if you're part of that group yet either, but if you're not, send me an email. I sent you one back the other day. But I am going to get out of here, everyone. Appreciate you all joining in tonight. Take care and prepare. I'll be back next Thursday. I'll be here every Thursday at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, which is 8 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. But take care and prepare. We'll talk to you all later.